Murphy, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Lino. Thanks for having me for the podcast.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about what you guys have been working on. What problem was Storex Network created to solve?
Okay. As we are there, we are in the world to solve a fundamental flaw that how the world stores the data. Practically from the day we started moving into the hyperscalers, all the data around the world is actually centralized and concentrated. So if you do a max right now, over 65% of the world data is just stored with three of the major hyperscalers. That means what happens is if any of the hyperscalers have any issues, like they go down, they have some kind of network spikes or anything, it creates like catastrophic effect all over the place. So you have banks which stop working, you have schools that stop working. So that's kind of very catastrophic because we are dependent on these few service providers. So Storex was basically created with a mission to provide a safe and secure storage location that doesn't depend upon single point of failure. So we have like a distributed architecture whereby your data doesn't rely on any single provider on a single location. Our data is spread throughout the world that ensures that the data always is available and up and running. So that's the kind of giving you security and privacy as well as resiliency to your data, which is not guaranteed or provided by any of the hyperscalers around the world today.
Gotcha. So my follow-up is, why is privacy-focused decentralization storage becoming increasingly important, over the last 2 years?
Yeah, because the rules of the games have changed right now. So we are living in a world where we see a mass amount of data that is being created. So if you see the amount of data that is generated over the period of years, I was going through some statistic in the last 5 years, we've created data more than the last 20 years put in together. And that
Hmm.
data creation is going to just go about exploding in the future as well. This is because of the various AI training, the IoT, the edge devices, and all this coming in. And just imagine so much of data, which is really of very important value to human beings, being stored across only three hyperscalers. That's like very catastrophic. That's one thing. The second thing is there's so much of laws which are enacted everywhere around the world that kind of makes it very difficult for people to lose in the data. So that's something that is like people are really looking forward to ensure. And the third very important fact is the amount of virus and that the amount of ransomware that is infecting the data or that is affecting the business has gone up too much. So we kind of creating a DRS model where people don't have to depend only upon the hyperscalers. They can start looking at an alternative how they can secure the data and help them to have the data always available whenever they need it.
Gotcha. So let's focus a little bit about risks, of centralized storage, cloud storage. What are some of the biggest risks enterprises face when relying on centralized cloud architecture?
Okay, so there are, I'll put them into the three major buckets which are there. The first one is the concentration, of course, as I told you when we started. We have only three hyperscalers which are controlling almost like 65% of the data around the world. So that means if any of this goes down or any of these have problem, even in a specific zone, it would be very catastrophic and it would create havoc in our life. So you remember October last year, if you were aware, there was one
Yeah.
hyperscaler who went down in one specific zone, and that created a complete mess in human life. There was so much of things that stopped working. People were not able to access their banking. People were not able to access the critical data. So that's something that is really very critical. So that's the second thing. The second one is the price hike because of so much of concentration which is just happening of the data with this service provider. They are like in the seller's market. They can put in any terms to the users, and the amount of uh, discounts or the amount of billing that has been done has gone phenomenally high. So that's one more risk. And third is of course the judicial risk which are there, which is because there's so many laws which are enacted around the world, which makes it completely important for users to secure the data. And if you were aware of the war which was recently happening, there were these data centers which were specifically targeted. Two countries specifically, the AI data centers was targeted, and now data centers and data has become one of the most critical factor of national importance. That's something how we consider right now. So that's the whole risk when we go in with a very few concentrated service providers or hyperscalers.
Mm, mm, mm. So Murphy, ransomware attacks. Why is it so difficult for traditional systems to defend against them?
Okay, so it's actually something that the traditional architecture was designed, and something that ransomware exactly needs: concentration of data. So if you look at how the ransomware effect works, is it will just find the data at specific location, and it will just lock the entire data set, irrespective of how many users are there, what is the kind of data, it will just lock it. So that's kind of something that is really very the fundamental flaw that we have in the architecture, and that which needs to be really thought about, like how your data is being stored and how it is being secured. So that's I think ransomware has become a global headache for all the CIOs, Cisco's, and companies as well. There are incidents when ransomware has affected, and the organization was simply shut down because they didn't have any backup or anything. So we are basically working entirely to flip this equation. So rather than keeping the data concentrated at a single location, what we do is we actually encrypt your data and store it across multiple locations. So no devices, no secure location or single location can have the entire access of the data. And because you're encrypting the data at source itself, it remains encrypted and not seen by anybody. So that's something that we are trying, what we have achieved and what we're trying to promote to all the users.
Gotcha, gotcha. So from your experience, and excellent example you gave earlier about the war that's going on, what's like the hidden cost of a single point of failure?
So it's a very important question. So what I can say is we calculated it roughly when we're doing a max, it's around 5,600 per minute to 9,000 per minute, depending upon what is the organization going in. And it can go to millions of dollars, depending upon how important is the task and at what crucial time at this happened. So that's something very, very important. Plus, there is some very other risk which is involved, like the reputation damage that you have, the compliance penalties that you have, the insurance premium that's rising. So that all things makes it really very threatening to the business if they don't consider the risk of ransomware right now.
Gotcha, gotcha. So let's talk a little bit how StarX works. Can you explain how the encryption, the fragmentation, and distribution work all together?
That's something that I would love to talk about always. So we what we do is basically we structurally design in a way which ensures the data. So whenever you're using storage to secure your data, what we do is in the source itself. So that means the laptop or the desktop of the user itself, we will lock the file with the user's own unique encryption key. That means the key remains always with the user. It's never shared with this. And then the encrypted file is transferred to storage, where it's broken down into multiple fragments. And then we replicate those fragments, and then we have a network of storage nodes which are spread worldwide. We put these fragments everywhere around the world to ensure that it remains distributed and there's no central location which has all the information. That's the beauty of this. Because of this distribution, it's offering a high level of resiliency, and because of the encryption and fragmentation, users is guaranteed that you have high level of privacy. So your data always remains secure and reliably available. So what happens is, if any of the node goes down in a single location, you always have an alternative node which might be storing that fragment, and the system knows from where to get it. So irrespective of the fact, even if there are 15 nodes, 20 nodes where your data is stored, and eight of the node goes down, you can still fetch those data. That means your data remains really very highly resilient, unaware of any things happening on the network.
Gotcha, gotcha. So you've kind of explained to us, how decentralization improves resiliency and privacy. But what are some of the benefits you can get from, beyond security, such as cost savings and bandwidth savings?
Yeah. So there are two very important factors that we have. One is the amount of carbon footprints that we save in. So what we do at StoreX is we don't create any new data centers. We don't create any new computing facility, storage facility. We use the facility which is being underutilized all around the world. So we have a community of node operators which are spread worldwide. what they do is they go to local data centers, find out which is the data centers which is available, which has been underutilized, and keep in the nodes and provide the storage to us. So that's kind of big thing that is there. So we are able to save in a lot of carbon emission because of that. The other one is because we are not setting up any infrastructure, we are able to offer this at a highly subsidized rate compared to any of the hyperscalers. So
Mm,
I'll explain that as well. So when you talk about storage, storage has two components. One is the storage cost and one is the egress cost. And whenever you're storing with hyperscalers, you have to pay both the charges together. With us, we have a very generous amount of egress which is offered. So that's like almost negligible. So we have some projects which we have offered like zero egress charge. That makes a lot of difference because the costing goes down very low because of this egress factor.
mm. So let's talk a little bit about the new world of I call new world to the layman, AI, data sovereignty, and governance. What's been like the new challenges does AI create for data storage and compliances?
I think it's a very big challenge that you see uh, because right now we're just scaling up the AI world. People are just using AI without looking at the problems that we can have, without looking at the disadvantages that you can have. So data
Right.
has to remain. They are really not aware when they store a certain amount of data at a certain location. What is the benefit or the disadvantage that the AI can take to it? I'll tell you a very good example. We had a certain organization who come to us. They had some critical client information, and this was like proprietary data that they have collected over the period of time. They did not wanted this data to go into any other hyperscalers. They were afraid that this data can be misused or can be used to train their LLM. So what we created a closed loop uh, storage solution for them. This is like a private network which was just given to them, and the LLMs were trained based on that. So what happens is they had all the models trained on top of this storage, and they will ensure that the data is never leaked out of the network. So that's something like that is something that we should start considering it right now because of the enormous benefit that AI is offering. People are not taking consideration of the security aspect that it comes with that. So that's something that is really important because all the governments have enacted so much of laws around data privacy and data security. This is
Right.
something that needs to be really considered, and it cannot be like overseen.
hmm So that's an excellent example. And I was going to ask you, but as you work with, Murphy, as you work with other CIOs, what else should they be thinking about, regarding data sovereignty and the global environment?
I think there are three very important factors that anybody should consider. One is where is your data physically residing and under which laws? So, what are the laws which are actually applicable to the data which is residing? So, there are specific laws like Cloud Act law, which is enacted by the US government. So, even if your data resides outside US and you're serviced by a US company, you're bound to give the data. So those
Mm,
are very stringent laws which are there, and there are laws which are protecting the user's data. So you need to always know where your data is physically located and how it is being secured. The second one is who can access your data. That's the second important question, which we don't consider. Like if even if your data is lying on this cloud, who are the person who are able to access the data and can see your data? That's something really very important. The third one is who is holding the encryption key. So even if your service provider is keeping your data encrypted, who has the service, who has the encryption key which they can enable to see your data. So these are something that is really very important and something that has to be considered really. So that is what we are trying to promise with Storex. We are trying to ensure that the data always remains private and secure because of the private key, which is cryptographically enforced on all the data that is hosted with us.
mm, gotcha. Murphy, is the resistance to decentralization, is that from a technology issue? Is it a trust issue or just a maturity issue that we'll be going through globally?
I think it's a mindset issue right now. So right now we're still in a very nascent stage where decentralization technology is still being uh, checked out, what you can say, by the enterprises actually. So if you look at the cloud and the hyperscalers, they took almost like 25 to 30 years to come to this point, right? So if you see
Mm.
the time where they started and the time we are at, so it took them 25 years, and we are just like a 5-year-old organization. So still we are fighting with that mindset of people like this is secure. How we can secure it architecturally rather than the trusting a certain organization. So we always had a mindset that we can trust an organization rather than trusting the architecture, which will ensure that your data remains really private. So that's the side where we are into. So the mindset is something that, and we see eventually that opening up, but it still takes some time to gradually open up and start in full-fledged use.
Gotcha, gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about system thinking and organizational risk. You kind of hit on some of these points earlier, so you might go a little bit deeper now. But how does decentralized storage change the way the organizations think about trust?
So the whole idea with decentralization is you don't trust anyone. So you don't trust anyone. You are trusting the mathematics and the cryptographic guarantee that actually guarantees you confidentiality. So the system takes care, and the whole architecture is trustless, whereby you feel that anyone can be compromised, but it's the architecture, it's the cryptography which is actually ensuring that your data remains secured and not seen by anybody. So that's something that's something difficult that people find to dwell in themselves. But I feel that over the period of time we will be able to make this understand and make this dwell down into people. Like this is how you ensure the security just by the standards of the architecture which is offered by this the whole architecture.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, I'm not sure about this, but I'm a stretch to pretend I'm a little bit expert. Are there any parallels between, resilient cloud architecture and resilient organizations? I'm not sure if there's a parallel there or there's an intersection.
I think resilient organizations have very clear audit trails. You can see who decided what, when, why the resilient architecture have. So the same way like the cryptography. So just one thing like so it's actually the information which is available, how transparent you are. So that's why what we decided the day one when we were planning to create this whole application, we ensure that we are totally open source. So entire source code of a project is open source and available. So that's something that that's what we kind of I personally kind of relate with a resilient organization, that everything is documented, everything is well organized, and everything is available for audit.
So with that said, if I'm talking to some of my clients, and you talk to some of your clients, what should leaders be doing today to reduce their data risk?
I think I think there are important factors which I personally feel is it's of course my personal feeling is they should first run a concentration audit, like how much of the data is concentrated with the service providers, how much of it is concentrated in single region, single location, and
Mm,
what can be effect of the downtime for certain ISPs or the service provider, the data center, those kind of things. And the second one is, as I told you, the encryption key is very, very important. Like how much, who is holding the encryption key and how the data is encrypted. So who can see your data, who is holding the encryption key is something that is in. And I think they should look at one more thing is start piloting with decentralized workloads. Start at least by 5% of your data being on the decentralized cloud and explore. It's not just us, but they can go to all the other service providers. They are doing a fantastic job, so they can start utilizing the benefit that decentralized offers to the data security and privacy arena as a whole.
mm. So Murphy, from your experience, what's been like the biggest misconception about decentralized storage?
Uh, uh, the two misconceptions that we've been fighting through. So I'll give you, and both have their own honest opinion. So whenever we talk about decentralized project, people always associate project with something like a Bitcoin or a scam project, which is always there.
Right.
They are not wrong totally, because there were so many of projects that came in and they just flopped up. So it was like 2017, 2018, the hype of the blockchain revolution. when many projects came in, they promised a hell lot of things and they just disappeared overnight. So that's something that's happening in AI as of now. So the same way, whenever there's hype, there are a lot of things built around it. And but I feel there are some good projects which come out of this kind of hype, which are going actually offering the real value to the people. So that's something that has to be seen and experienced. So that's something. And the second one is they feel that because it's decentralized, it doesn't offer the same level of resiliency or robustness as a centralized system. So what I want to tell to that medium is it offers you the same kind of resilience and reliability. Of course, there is some processing that happen which is additional compared to what it centralized it, because centralized always stores the data as one file in single location. That will always be faster. We kind of encrypt it, make fragments, distribute it, replicate it. So there's a lot of process that happens. So this kind of slightly delays the process of storage, but the amount of value that is offered because of this process is it's far more superior compared to this, offering of the centralized cloud. So I think these are two major misconceptions that people have around the decentralized.
Gotcha. Now, Murphy, between you and your team, what trends you think will most impact enterprise security over the next 5 years?
I think with this rampant growth of AI, how AI being adopted around the world, there is the same disadvantage and bad actors using the AI in the same way. So the major threat I see around the world that's going to happen is the kind of attacks, AI-powered attacks that is going to happen. AI-generated data sprawl. Enterprises will have a lot more risk, which was actually uh, earlier it was like just hackers and ransomware. Now it can be multiple sources and it can be much more powerful compared to what it is. So the CISOs, the CTOs have a very important role to play in, and something that they need to be always be aware of or on the heels, the kind of security risk that would be involved, the kind of data which is going to be exposed is the risk is much more high compared to what we had in the earlier years, and all powered by because of this AI, and it is going to be really very sophisticated. That's something that really is that should keep that's a nightmare actually for all CTOs, Cisco's, and all around the world.
Gotcha. Now, this is a question for our new CEOs, I mean new CIOs that listen to the podcast. What advice would you give them, taking over a new, enterprise, for them evaluating their storage options?
I think the very important advice that I would like to give them is stop evaluating storage as a commodity and start evaluating it as a strategic risk. Ask what happens to my business if the storage provider is not available, what happens if the data is not accessible, what happens if the data is leaked out. So that's some strategic questions that they have to evaluate and see how much risky it is and start out a backup process. That's something really very important that I feel from the storage perspective. Of course, I'll talk about the storage part of it. That's something that I really think should the CIOs, discos, and all CTOs should look at very deeply.
Hmm. Now, Murphy, where can my listeners, and followers, find more about you and Storex and your team? And I'll put the link down below in my podcast notes.
Sure, that would be great. So our primary site is storex.io, and we are very active in social media and LinkedIn, Twitter ID at Storex Network. You can find it all the way around, and I would definitely love to share the links of our social media, which you can share it with the audience. We keep posting all the developments around and all the things happening around in the world of storage, decentralized storage, anything related to security around data storage.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, Murphy, we end every episode with a question and we'll close on your answer. If you could
Sure.
leave leaders today with one principle about data security and trust, what would that be?
I think something around data storage again. So trust that is concentrated is trust that is fragile. Trust that is distributed is a trust that endures. So people should start exploring alternatives. People should at least start the exposure with a very nominal way to decentralized storage and evaluate the risk which is involved in the centralized storage for sure. That's something that I would want the CIO Cisco's to look around.
Fantastic, fantastic. Murphy, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to be part of our podcast. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to maybe touch base with you in the future just to get it's the new trends and new offerings that StorX is putting out there regarding data
Sure, sure.
security and decentralization. So appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Nina. Thanks for having me with the podcast.
Thank you. Now.
I love that. Well, before we wrap up this deep dive, please support our sponsors who make this all possible. Remember Crunch Time Gourmet Popcorn and Apples out of Bridgeport, West Virginia.
Yeah, their small batch homemade caramel is perfect for game day, movie night, or just treating your team. Shop the flavors online at crunchtimewv.com. That's crunchtimewv.com.
And if you want to go further in your career, LinkedIn Premium is designed to help you get hired, grow your business, or learn new skills. Definitely worth exploring if you're in a growth season.
And of course, this segment's featured platform is Fundrise's Innovation Fund, VCX. Regular investors can finally participate in venture capital and access high-growth tech companies before they go public. Learn more at fundrise.com/VCX.
For any additional information, please reach out via our website at karaswisher.com. And be sure to check out our other deep dive show, The Continuous Improvement Lab.
And our YouTube channel at Karas Innovations Group. Also, a huge thank you to our executive producer and founder, Lanier Johnson.
Absolutely.